Call the regular meeting of the Ames Conference Board for January 24th, 2023 to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming and welcome. We'll start off with roll call.
Ames City Council.
President.
Ames School Board.
Here.
Nevada School Board.
Here.
Gilbert School Board. United School Board. Board of Supervisors.
Here.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 2, motion approving minutes of September 27th, 2022 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
I move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Moved it by supervisor, second by Ames City Council. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3, update from our city assessor, Sherry Plagge, on the progress of the office.
Okay, so it's been busy few months since last September when we met. We are still working on getting that appraisal clerk position filled. I actually had the start of the phone interviews this morning, and hopefully in the next week or so, we will have a candidate that will be ready to start here, hopefully by mid-February. We did post the position for deputy. That did not really turn out well, so we decided, between myself and talking with HR, we decided to forego those candidates and wait and repost after we get done with the appraisal clerk position and getting them hired. I still do have the 2 temp data entry people. They are doing very well and helping a great deal with the conversion. The rest of the staff has really done a great job with just getting the conversion and everything going. We've put in some overtime, so everybody has done a little bit extra and staying late, coming in early, taking a short lunch so that we can get as much as we possibly can done before we have this data out for the public and before our notices go out. Any questions on staffing? Okay. So as far as the data conversion goes, all of the sketches and pricing for the single family homes and duplex properties are completed. We are currently working on the new construction for those and the condos that have had their regimes removed. Just because the regimes were removed, we have reduced 1,574 condo parcels into 63 parcels. So they have all been consolidated down, much more manageable when we can do that. The property owner does not get 100 or 200 tax statements. We don't have to send out 100 or 200 tax rolls. We don't have to individually value them as well. So that has helped a great deal. Part of that was because I did talk to a couple of the larger property owners in the area, and they have decided after talking with me that it was to their benefit and to our benefit that they go ahead and proceed with that. The remaining condos, excuse me, are being updated for their pricing. So now we have about 300 residential 3+, which are the apartment buildings that are being currently reviewed, and the ones that are converted, we have to completely review those. That includes those 63 parcels. We're about 2/3 complete with that, with the data entry and with the reviews on those. Commercial properties, we are starting on Monday. I do have a commercial appraiser coming to assist me with this conversion process. We have about 1,200 commercial industrial properties that we need to get converted into the Vanguard system yet. Updates to land values will be a summer project, and we will get that started as soon as the board review is completed. And that process also includes doing some sales data studies to see where we're at on those land values. Once we get all the information into the system, it'll be much more manageable as far as trying to decide where we sit with land values, with depreciation tables, and with the manual level as well. Any questions on the data conversion process? No? Okay. Tax appeals. After last year's board review session, we did end up with 34 appeals to PAB or district court total. That does include the prior year of 2021. We have currently 12 active cases that still need to be heard. 8 of them are from 2021. Of those 34, 4 have been denied or dismissed by PAB. 6 were settled and 12 have been withdrawn. And the 12 that are withdrawn, most of those were the large apartment complex condo regimes that have been removed. A few of them sold. So the new owners didn't proceed because they did sell for more than what we had total on them. So that kind of proves our point that our values were probably okay. We do have one additional case that is currently in litigation. They have appealed due to the process, not necessarily the valuation, and the necessity of filing an appeal each year. They missed one of the interim years, and so the value went up, and that's what they're appealing about, is that interim process. There is a list on the very back couple of pages, and you can see where we are still standing as far as our active cases. I am in negotiations with a couple of them right now. I have the next page has the denied, dismissed, then we have the settled, and then withdrawn. And you can see on that list what the addresses are, if they're a condo, if they're multi-residential, if they are vacant land, what the addresses are, what the assessed value is, what the appellant value is asking for, and then whether or not they're in PAB or district court. So, and that is the complete list of all those that we have had since I started. So, any questions on those tax appeals?
So this is not about these particular appeals, but I know for several years, there was an ongoing challenge with the research park. And do we have that all sorted out since they are not appealing things?
You know, I know that they were on the list when I started, and I want to say that we settled that one. I'm trying to find it here. Is that one that's a settle? I thought they were on our list.
Yeah, I looked for them and I couldn't find them, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Okay, so there's nothing ongoing with them at this time. They could have had a board of review appeal last year, but they didn't move forward if they did have one. I would have to check on that to see for sure. I don't know. I have talked briefly with the owner of the research park, but I just really haven't, we haven't started our commercial stuff yet. So I really haven't gotten into those types of properties real deep yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, these appeals, are any of these are all inherited, is that right? Or is there anything that, your office has done since you took office that has been appealed? Or is that premature? That's going to be next year.
Yes, no, the 2022, anything that's on the list for 2022 have been since I've taken office. I did have there were 4 so far that I've actually had, went to PAB and had the appeal hearings. One of them, they did not show up, so that one was dismissed, and the other 3 were denied, so we did win those. 2 of them were classification, and 1 of them was on exemption. So far, we have not had any others that have went to PAB or district court to be heard yet. We have settled some, though.
Mm-hmm.
I did settle, like Menards, I did settle with them for both 2021 and 2022. We came up with, after getting the appraisals back, we came up with a settlement value on those. And then there were a couple other ones that we did that as well with. We got settlements, so they have been disposed of as well because they've been settled. So
Thank you. Other questions for Sherry on tax appeals? Okay.
Just some other information. We have been reviewing some of the policies and procedures for the office, trying to see where we can make things more productive, more streamlined. One of those things is we are discussing right now with City IT to try and get the backups, especially on their system and their schedule, so that we don't have two systems that are coming in and doing those backups. Right now, we have an outside company that does it, and apparently the city does it as well. So we're trying to find out where those duplications are and cut those out. Also, I'm going to be working with HR after we get done with the conversion for this summer, get notices out. I am going to start reviewing everybody's job descriptions and maybe making some changes on what job duties are, job responsibilities, and those kinds of things, and maybe get some things there streamlined and not duplicated as well. We're just plugging right along with getting this conversion done and doing as much as we can before those assessment notices have to go out in March, at the end of March.
Were you going to go over the tables on page 3 of 9? Or were we going to do that later? I just had a question
Sure,
about the percentage change columns.
sure. So we can just, if you want to go to just for the annual report, if you just want to go on page 1, a couple of things I just want to point out in the report. We do have a vacancy for the Board of Review, so that will need to be determined before the next board meeting so we can appoint somebody. We do have in there the responsibilities of the assessor and then the conference board, and I believe that everybody got the guidelines that were produced by the Assessors Association. That is, most of it's right out of the code. So that was also approved by the Department of Revenue before we put that out on our website. The third page, that is the assessed and taxable values. And if you look at the first table, that is the 100% assessed value by class. And this is a change from 20 to 21. So these percent changes are in value. Yes.
I just wondered if you were displaying some of the percentages the way you wanted to on your spreadsheet. I was looking at the 31.7%, and I was reading across, and I was trying to get do that calculation and say that for the change from 21 to 22 was
I do
not
see
that.
Yeah.
And then I see that what it is simply doing is adding all your percentage changes, and that's not what you're wanting to display
Right.
there, is it?
No, that is correct.
So the 31.7 and 32.3, and then the 1.7 and the 4.7, all were done as sums of the percentage changes rather than the percentage change of the total line, because it looks
Sure,
like
yeah.
it's overstating the increase. Would you agree?
Yes, it does look like that. I do apologize. I put this chart together using last year's, I just plugged in the new numbers and I didn't review the Excel formulas.
Okay, okay, good.
Okay.
I'm glad that it's not that, those aren't the numbers there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The percent changes for each of the categories, though, should be correct.
Mhm. It's just when you get to the totals.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And just to kind of reiterate the residential and Res 3 Plus, that Res 3 Plus does include all of those formerly multi-residential parcels, which are the apartment buildings. On the next page is the list of the staff of the city assessor's office and their start dates and what their job is, including the 2 open positions that I have right now. The department activities, I have went through most of those. We do also have, if you look at the bottom of the page, on page 4, The Department of Revenue with the new DOV system, we are still working through how that process is going to go. The department has now changed that again. And we are not only entering our data, but we now are entering the sales data as well that the department used to do. Eventually, we are supposed to be able to get this report automatically sent in instead of having to do actual data entry. So whenever we have a sale, you know, we had well over 600 sales, we had to hand enter all of them. And some of those sales have several, the condos that sold, the entire complexes, you know, some of those had 200 or 300 parcels for each sale. So each one of those had to be individually entered. So hopefully when that is completed, we won't have to worry about that part of it. And that will save us a lot of time getting those sales into the department's website.
Julie, before you go, Sherry, before you go any further on, I think Director Beerbaum asked a question about, do you have adequate staff to, accomplish your, tasks? And you have two key positions open, the deputy as well as a appraisal clerk. And, I commend those that are helping you carry the weight. How do you, and then you have this extra staff time you have to spend entering all this. I'm just curious, are you able to keep up? And his question was, do you have adequate staff in order to, even with these two positions once filled, have you assessed that yet, or you're still in the process of kind of determining that?
I think that once we get all the data entered in, I will have a much better idea of whether or not the current staff, once the DOB process is completed, if the current staff is able to keep up with keeping the data correct and up to date. It is recommended that each parcel be reviewed at least every 6 years. That is an IAAO standard. The Department of Revenue also has that in their cost manual, that is best practice is to at least visit the property once every 6 years. If you break that down and look at how many parcels we have compared to the staff, if you look at it that way, we are understaffed. Just simply because it would be impossible to get to every one of them every 6 years with just 2 or 3 people to do that. Once we get the rest of these condos and stuff converted, I'm hoping that we have more people that step up and get this done as well. And when that happens, that will definitely decrease the amount of parcels that we have to do, but it will increase the type of parcels from just one single condo parcel to an entire complex. So we may need to do one of the reasons I want to reorganize is because of that, because we have these other types of parcels that are going to increase and the regular residential ones are going to decrease. Once that happens, in the next year or so, I think we'll get a much better idea of what we need in order to keep data current and visit properties every 6 years like it is recommended. Currently, the 2 people that are doing the temp workers that are doing all the data entry have been fantastic in getting a lot of that data entry done for us. And in fact, when the appraisals go out, they bring their information back and they are also entering that data in for them. So it's making that process go a little bit faster.
And you're talking about your first bullet on page 4 under activities. Conversion will be completed over the next 4 years.
Correct.
How does that interface with the requirement for the Department of Revenue that I think it's by January 1 of 2024, you have to be compliant with the Iowa manual?
Yes. So we will actually be compliant with the Iowa manual this year because all of the properties will be converted into Vanguard and priced out of that manual. And that is the requirement of the department. We would have been able to do it in another year, one more year, but it's too hard to try and keep 2 systems going. So that's one of the reasons why the land value portion has been put on hold until later. We are going to go ahead and leave those land values for this year. and we're updating all of the costs from the manual to get that portion done. So we would be in compliance actually a year ahead of time, really.
Okay.
So
Sherry, does the valuation of all of the properties, which is supposed to occur every 6 years, have to occur all at one time?
No.
Or, so you could stagger
yes.
the parcels? Okay.
Yes. So what I've done in the past is I've taken all the parcels and we've divided it up into areas. So this year we might do, this section of town. This year we might do this section of town, and it's just rotating until we get through all of them, and then we just start over and do it again.
Sherry, there's been some nice growth in Nevada, both with some of their commercial industrial as well as residential. Could you remind us, excuse me, Ames constitutes 2/3 of the population of Story County. Do you have a ballpark of what percentage the taxable value that Ames represents of the entire county?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have that, but I can certainly get that.
If it's not a difficult calculation, that would be, I think, a helpful data point.
I
for us.
can get the abstract from Story County and look at the information from my abstract, and it's got parcel counts and it's got values.
That'd be great.
So
Thank you.
sure. Okay. One of the other things that I did want to mention with all of this conversion is we do have regular staff meetings, and I do try and gain input from the staff to make sure that the processes that I'm trying to put into place and the processes that we had before don't make things worse. So, we do talk about how it's going to go. In fact, Dan and I and Lisa sat down one day just to see, we worked through how the whole the condo conversion process was going to go, and started out with just a couple, and it seems to be going pretty well so far. So, I do gain staff input to make sure that we do have everybody on the same page, doing the same things and thinking the same ways. That will also help later on with consistency and equity throughout all of the parcels as we go. The next page is the sales data for the 2023 valuations. This is what I believe we need to be doing as far as increasing values to get our properties to market value for 2023. This is preliminary. I have not done all the studies, but this is what the data is showing right now. And this is actually pretty common for the larger cities and larger communities throughout the state. With that being said, the increase in value does not necessarily mean that you're going to get that type of an increase in your taxable value and in turn the taxes. Do you want to go up to the next one, please? So if you look at page 6, the little graph, and this is a graph that was put together for the association. It is on an ag parcel, but it was chosen because this parcel does not have any kind of credits or exemptions. It's just a straight parcel that has had nothing really to fluctuate throughout this whole time frame. So if you look at the blue line, that is the change in assessed value. So you can see that in 2013, it went way, way up. But yet the red line, if you go across, it stays fairly consistent. So even if you have large swings in your 100% value, you keep that taxable value at more steady of a level. And then in turn, the change in taxes is a little bit more steady and does not fluctuate compared to what the market value does. So this is kind of a nice graph to show people that, yes, we're going to have changes, but overall, we shouldn't have a large fluctuation in the actual taxable value in the end.
So we know that, but we're about to get hammered with people who are going to absolutely have their hair on fire
Yes.
because they're going to assume that their taxes are going to go up this amount.
Correct.
And we've got a lot of people in Ames that are living sort of paycheck to paycheck. They're on fixed incomes. and they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
So any suggestions on how we can accurately communicate and assure people that one does not mean the other would be greatly appreciated.
I've done this in the past. I've sent out a letter with every single parcel with their assessment notice that says, this is the reasons, put this graph in there and just say, over time, you can see if you look at your taxable value, it doesn't fluctuate a huge amount unless there's something that's being done. Like if you have new construction, of course, you're going to have a large swing in your taxable value because you've got a brand new house and it was a vacant lot before. But normally you don't have that largest swing if it's just market value that is driving what the prices are for housing. I am also planning on putting out information on Facebook page, on the city's website, on my website, send it to the papers so that people are aware that this is going to happen, it's coming, but not to panic just yet, because this also is not going to be turned into taxable value until much later in the year. So we won't know what that actual rollback is until October. But history tells us that the taxable value will keep its even keel and not jump up and down like the actual assessed value does. And that is also part of when we have people come in, that's part of what we do is explain why and how it works.
And we work very hard across all the bodies to keep our costs of providing government at a very reasonable rate. And so there'll likely be some kind of adjustment on the millage rate as a result of this. But boy, it is very difficult to explain this to people. And
Yeah.
I'm still not very good at this. So you can show them whatever graphs, but they're just freaking out. So
Yeah.
anyway, thanks.
And hopefully I can get some of that information sent out and to everybody on the conference board as well, so that if you do have questions and you can always send them to me. That's one thing that they can always call the office.
Be
you-
careful what you ask for.
I know. Well, that's part of what I need to do is explain what my assessed value is compared to the taxable value.
And I don't know what possibility there is to partner with our staff on using social media to communicate, but yeah,
Yep.
thanks.
I couldn't agree with Tim more. I think that's also what's driving the legislature. They're seeing this, big increase, and I think that you're right. We're going to have a lot of our constituents are going to be asked that questions. So my question to you is, under residential on page 5, says percent increase due to market sales, 28.73%. So does it help me understand? Does that mean that if a person has a house that has a current market value of $100,000 on your rolls, would their house go up to $128,000 automatically, or is it not across the board? Is it dependent upon the calculation of the quality and everything else that's baked into the software?
Yeah. So some may go up more than that. Some may go up less. It really is dependent on what the area of town is doing, because we do set not only manual level itself, but we set market areas too, because not everything is going to sell the same throughout the entire city of Ames. It's the same everywhere. You'll have a good area, you'll have a bad area. So we do have market areas that we can help with keeping the assessed values and the market values close, which means, yes, some are going to go up more, some are going to go up less. Some may not change very much at all. It really depends on the market in that area. So it's not necessarily 28% that it will increase. Overall, it's actually a little bit more than that to get to that 28%.
That wasn't an encouraging answer.
Sorry.
All right. So
So basically right now, if you have a house that is $70,000, it's actually selling for closer to 100.
Okay.
And that increase is where our reval is taking place, where we have to find that 28% to increase overall. It's not just every house is getting it.
Well, I really appreciate Tim's question because I think it's very appropriate, and that is,
Yeah.
the more we can get out in front and
Mhm.
try and educate. But I think that even the legislature, my conversations with them, even last week, is, and they're not blaming assessors, they're not blaming council. It's just the property tax formula is complex. It's very hard to describe to people how all these are nuanced. But once, more we can do to be out in front, and even meeting with media and radio and just explaining in terms that everyone can understand. Not that you're not doing that, but just more or less it's even a graph, maybe some of us can grasp it, but there's people that can't grasp it.
And sometimes people need bar graphs or pie charts or whatever. And
anyway, but
I've done all of that in the past as well.
so when
And
can people,
once I have more firm numbers, then we will definitely go out and get this out to the press, to council, to the supervisors, to everybody, so that they all understand where the office numbers are coming in at.
and when will these start hitting the people's mailboxes then, the notices of the
April 1st, they have to be mailed by that date.
Okay.
So the first week of April is when everybody will probably start to panic and get phone calls.
Okay, thank you.
But with that notice, you're sending that kind of explanation, the hedge a little bit.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Sherry, I have a question, and this is an interesting number, this 28%. And John, I appreciate you flagging this for us. So I'm going to set the property tax piece aside for a moment and just looking at the percentage of increase due to market sales.
Mhm.
Do you have data for peer communities in Iowa that would be helpful for us to see? So as we compare Ames with our peers, what that percentage due to market sales would be?
Sure.
So that would be a helpful data point for us. From a policy perspective, we're seeing increased demand for a finite number of properties. So it's supply and demand. I can promise you that most communities in Iowa are not experiencing anything like this. They've had increases, but not at 28%. And so this is telling us as policymakers some very important data that there are housing pressures here that we need to address by providing more housing. And that's our goal with the 2040 plan. But that kind of data would be a helpful point,
Sure.
whether it's people living in the city or living in the country or other surrounding communities. We have got to provide more housing. And the one positive thing of all this is that this is a good problem to have. So if you look at how this is going by county, there are many counties in Iowa that are declining in population. So I would far rather be in a county in a city that's growing in population than one that's experiencing downward pressure. That's a whole nother set of problems. I'll take this set any day.
Sure.
But that would be a helpful data point for us as policymakers to be able to see that.
Sure. I can
Thank
get
you.
you some of that information as well.
Yep, thank you.
I want to respect everyone's time, and we also have supposed to call next meeting to order at 6, so I want to allow time for a budget too. Does anyone else have any questions regarding the assessed valuations? And share anything else you want to highlight in your report? And I'm anticipating that there may be some questions on the budget that we want to go over too.
Yep. Yeah. The last couple of pages it just gives you the total assessment appeals that we had for informals and for border review. And then of course, we've already went over the PAB cases and district court cases. Okay, so then we get to the budget.
I think just to make a note, you footnoted, but just to bring, you say the vast majority of the 861 residential cases were condominium regimes held by a single owner. Because I could look, I saw the 861, I thought, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
You
Not
know.
861, one owner, but most of those were condos that were held by one owner, and I'm not sure exactly how many there were total.
The way it works is since every condo is its own
Right.
unit, you have to place a case for every unit.
Right.
Right.
So if
Right.
someone owns 300 units, it's one case, but it's 300 cases
Yep.
being heard
Yep.
as
Right.
one case.
So we didn't have near that many actual cases that went before the board of review. I did not break that down into how many, but a lot of them were condos that had single owners for the whole entire complex. So.
Good. All right. Any questions on the report? All right. Item 4, discussion on appointments to board review. Do you have anything you want to bring up on that?
We did have the board review member that was appointed last year has resigned for personal reasons, health reasons. So there will need to be a replacement for her. And I'm not sure how you want to go about that. I can put an ad out, or we can post something that says we're looking for a member. I don't know. I believe in the past somebody has volunteered or recruited somebody to be on this board. We do like to have people on the board that do have some idea of what real estate values are. People in realtors, construction, architects. Those are the preferred people to be on the board. If we couldn't find somebody like that to be on the board, then you can have other people that would kind of know the market, business people, owners of properties, somebody who has a reasonable knowledge of what the market is doing in the city of Ames.
So do we have any particular type of person we need for the vacant seat? Did you say the code requires members to have different occupations?
We are not supposed to have more than 2 people in any one particular occupation. There's my list here. Front.
I think that we have quite a few people that have real estate or realtor type
Yeah.
background right now.
So Gail and Gina are, no, wait, Gina is in real estate. Park is a farmer.
Well, he was also in real estate and also was a developer too. So
Yeah. I think we put him down as occupation as a farmer.
I think Gail was in real estate. She was.
She
She's
was.
retired.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a bit about Bill.
Bill was one of the first heads of
Pardon
public
me?
works. Bill was one of the first heads of public works for the
Yeah.
city,
Okay.
and he also worked for the school, university too, I think.
In answer to your question, normally it's kind of fallen to the chair to try and help find someone, but I certainly have asked for feedback from the conference board if you know of someone. This is a hard position to fill.
Yeah.
One is because it does take a lot of time,
It
first of
does.
all. 2 is you want some expertise. So I am wide open to any and all recommendations. I think they would have to live though in the city limits.
They do need to live within
They
city
can't be a
limits.
county individual. That's the only thing on that one. So,
Sounds
but
like we don't have anybody in construction right now.
that would
I don't think,
Park might have had a little bit of experience in that,
Yeah.
but he is retired and it's been a few years. That's why he was attractive to me before, because he had a nice broad cross section of experience. But so
There are a number of good loan officers in Ames that I can think of that I
Sure.
can give you some names that would be.
so if you have some, if you want to,
Yeah.
you all have my email address. Email some suggestions if you would, and I can reach out to them. And then probably I'll work with Sherry and let her help if they are interested. Contact them. It is a reimbursed position as well too.
Yes.
There's some pay, but it does take
Yes.
a lot of time.
it does take a lot of time. It is a paid position. And basically for the month of May, we are sitting in border hearings. And they are during the day. And there are some duties and responsibilities. There's a packet for that too. So if anybody is interested, I will forward that on to everybody so that you can kind of look through that and see what their responsibilities would be as well.
And I think that in talking with Gina, she said that it does help to be retired because it does take a lot of time.
It does.
So it'd be hard. Not that you don't have to be retired, but that does make it a little more easy. Anyway. So please, if you have ideas, please send them and then we'll get them. We want to get those appointed hopefully in a couple of months.
Right.
All right. Budget. Item 5.
Okay, so the budget, I'm going to bring the first part of it up. In the past, it has been kind of not broken down as much as I would like to see it. It's all the way,
Yeah, at the bottom.
no, it's the other. There you go. You want to go all the way up though? Okay. I have broke this down a little bit further than what it normally is. I would like to start keeping track a little bit more on some of these items. It kind of gives me a better picture of where we're spending those dollars and maybe how we can either reorganize or spend our dollars more wisely. One of the instances, of course, is with the city IT and duplicating that with Oxen Technologies and having both places do backups for us. We don't need that many places to have things backed up. So that's one of the reasons why it's a little bit more broke down than what you would normally see. Also, I have taken some of those things. If you don't see something in the fiscal year 19, 20, 21, and 22 in those columns, that is because a lot of times it was in either the miscellaneous category or it was under the stuff that the city of Ames had paid or that we paid to the city of Ames. And instead of just putting those in a lump sum, the postage, the utilities, or the office space here, I broke that down so that we can see how that kind of is increasing over the years, or if it's decreasing or whatever.
I had a question about the percent change column on this one.
Yes.
So it looks like it's between the percent change, looks like it's referring to the difference between the re-estimated fiscal year ending June 2023 and the estimated 2024 column.
Correct.
Until you get to total payroll expenses, and then it's actually the percent change between the original budget FYE 2023
Mhm.
and the estimated 2024. So I guess I was just curious about that, because really it's an increase. It's a percent change increase from the re-estimated.
So the total payroll expenses that were budgeted last year was the 985.25. And then that is the original amount compared to the estimated for 2024.
Yeah.
So that is 978. So that
That's
from last year to this year, there's going to be a little bit of a decrease. But the reason I did not use the re-estimated is because there are some of the monies that were used from the assessors and the deputies line items were used in overtime and also for the temp position that we have. So that's why I use the actual budget from last year and the actual and the estimated budget for next year. That's why I use those two instead of the re-estimated.
But use the re-estimated for all the other numbers.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was reading that right.
Right. So the reason, and one of the other reasons I did that is because, of course, it was estimated that the assessor's salary would be the 164, when in reality, that was not what I came in at. So that's why it's the re-estimated is the percent change for those, the first part of it, from what's re-estimated to what it will be for the next year.
Might be nice to, on your original, have a footnote on that so people don't just think it was a formula problem, how you did that. I can understand it when you're explaining it, but. I appreciated the detail.
Okay, so I know that one of the questions that I have had was how the increases for the staff came about. This is just simply for me to get a number in there. With the MOU that was signed last year, I am going through HR and going through their merit process to actually get each person's raise or whatever they might get. It won't be, everybody won't have just like a flat 5%. It will be on the merit. I'm working with HR to try and, this is a new process for me. So I am on a bit of a learning curve for this one. In the past, it's always been kind of my own thoughts. And now there's this whole new process with HR for me to learn. So this is really, it's going to, the increase will be taking all of those funds and putting it into the HR merit system to decide who gets what in the end. But this was just a way for me to show that, this is where I feel that they should kind of come out or sit at. And once we get those reviews done later on, then that will determine what the actual percentage would be. 5% is also kind of what other assessors are doing, anywhere between 4.5 and 6. Some of them are doing more, just simply because they are starting to lose staff because their wages are not as attractive as somebody who's maybe in the next town or the next county. So there are some out there that are increasing anywhere between 10 and 22% is the highest that I've known so far.
So we're prior to you coming here, trying to think, and I'm sorry, I should have asked this beforehand. Are the positions for field assessors and for Dan and Lisa, are they commensurate with the role, their duties and responsibilities, job description now? Has that been reset or leveled, or is that the process that you've been going through in a couple of years?
Yes, that's the process I need to go through with HR yet.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that was one thing that was identified by Julie Royson, was there really wasn't very much in terms of job descriptions and also pay classifications and the like. So that,
Right.
Okay.
There has been some of that done, but not everybody has went through that process yet.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yes, that's a process we need to get done yet.
Okay. Any questions on attachment A, page 1, which is payroll? Everyone understand where Sherry's coming from on that? I see a lot of head nods. So, okay, page 2.
Page 2, the continuing ed is increasing because I do want to try and get more staff into some continuing ed classes, especially the basic classes. Dan, for instance, has only had 1 or 2 classes since he's been here in 5 years. And I really do think that they would benefit from getting some education themselves. Also, the progression of the office really needs to have somebody to come in and step into the deputy and the assessor role in the future. So if you don't have the education, you can't take the test. And then you're kind of in a spot when the assessor or the deputy leave, you don't have anybody, and then we don't want what happened 2 years ago to happen again. So that's kind of why I've increased that, because I do have staff that really needs to attend some, especially some beginning assessment courses, and work towards getting on the deputy list, at minimum the deputy list. So,
And would like to take courses, by the way. Speaking for myself.
Well, I will say this, is that was one thing that the conference board was very impressed with Sherry, was that she's very developmental in her approach to all staff. And so I think that there's a desire to see people progress and grow professionally. So we're glad to hear you want to take classes.
I've already taken more classes under Sherry than I did under Greg. So
Well, good. Thank you.
And then some of the other ones, they are kind of broken down from other places. So if there isn't anything again in those lines under 2019, 2021, and 22, it's because they were under another line item. So going forward, I will be able to keep better track of when those expenses increase and decrease. Data processing and software, we will have to have ProVal for a little while yet, just because we still haven't got this conversion completed. I'm not sure if it'll be a year or 2 years, but eventually that one will go away. And also I am reassessing what is under the Vanguard contract. I've already talked with Vanguard about a couple of the modules that they have that were purchased. I don't know that we really need some of them. So it is a 5-year contract. So I am trying to get them to reorganize and maybe put some of that money in on later fees, or maybe reorganize and get a different module that we can actually use better. So I've been working with them this last couple of weeks just to see where we're at and what we can do to reduce that as well. They do this by parcel count too. So the more parcels you have, of course, the more money they get. So
Hence the motivation to
reduce
get rid of the
parcel count.
get rid of the condos.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Any questions on page 2? I agree with Supervisor Merkin. I appreciate the increased detail on tracking. I think it's very helpful in terms of transparency and going forward.
And the last page, I guess the biggest item that I really want to point out is the appeals in court. This I do believe is needing to be increased, and I did reassess it for 2023 and reestimated some of those funds that were up towards the payroll into this as well, just because we do have the 34 appeals that we had in the beginning. We're still down to 12. And if anybody has ever had an appraisal done on any type of a commercial parcel, you're looking at anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 per parcel. So if I had 12 and I needed to get appraisals on all of them, I'm looking at least $60,000, if not closer to the 120. That does not include any other fees that they might have as far as coming and testifying, and it does not include any other attorney's fees or anything else that might go along with that. Mark has been very helpful from the city attorney's office in helping me with these when we can. There are probably in the future, and maybe even one of these that we do have to have outside counsel for. The one appeal that is in litigation right now, that is being done by outside counsel along with Mark. So the fees for that have been closer to $30,000 so far. So we did have to readjust that line item some just because of that reason. With everybody also getting their new assessment notices, I do expect more than the normal appeal year, just because this is an equalization year and everybody would get a notice even if it weren't a change, just because it is an appeal year. But since we are going to also reassess everything with the new manual and those increased construction costs, we're probably going to have more appeals at the board review level. The more appeals you have there, of course, the more appeals you have at PAB and at district court. So,
Sherry, do you think it's realistic? I understand that this office has gone through a lot of upheaval, and so this is not necessarily unexpected in terms of, the appeals and the erratic nature, and we had COVID thrown in there, the whole 9 yards. FY June 30, 2019 was $14,000 or $15,000. Now we're up to 100. Would a reasonable metric going forward 3 or 4 years in your future that will drop back down as we really work through this system and get some continuity, or do you
I think so. Yes. Unfortunately, there's no way to predict that.
Understood.
So,
Yeah, but I was just thinking that from a conference board standpoint, a metric for or measuring how you're doing would be
mhm.
keeping those appeals down. Not if you have one crazy one that comes in that takes a
Right.
lot of time or it's very big, I could see where that could throw it out of whack. But
Yeah.
it just seems like
And you always have those frequent flyers too, like Menards that would appeal every year, and Walmart and those types. If we cannot handle them in house, or if we have to have an appraisal done for each one every time, those are going to take funds.
and I'll just point out for the board, just again, we very fortunately had a in your line professional appraisal services. I forgot his name already. The guy from Sioux City that came in and helped. That $92,000 was offset by not having to pay for an assessor and other staff as well too.
Correct.
That went down, but boy, that was very beneficial to help us get through a tight spot for a few years. So. Any questions on this sheet? All right, then I would first of all entertain a motion approving recommendations of the assessor's report.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded by school board. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. And secondly, we entertain a motion to receive the proposed budget as just presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by city, second by county. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. And I entertain a motion to set date of public hearing on February 24th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. on proposed FY 2023-2024 city assessor's budget.
So moved.
That's a
That's a,
Friday.
yeah, I was.
Is that intentional?
Oh,
Is it?
Oh.
thank you for,
I
Yeah.
retract my motion.
It's the 28th.
28.
It says 24th, but 28th.
well, we could try and do something unique, I guess.
I'm sure people love to come on a Friday evening, right?
The original
Yeah,
email
actually-
said the 28th.
Yeah, it should be 28th. Yep. Thank you. All right, we'll change. So entertain a motion to set February 28th, 5:30 p.m. as a date of public hearing on proposed 2023-2024 city assessor's budget.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Second.
Oh,
Who seconded it over?
We need to have
School.
school. Thank you. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Joe, thanks for catching that. That would have been, have to go back and undo that one.
We'll
right.
just show up on a Friday night.
We could.
Nothing better to do.
All right. All right, any unfinished business? Any new business? Hearing none. Conference board comments. We'll start with school board. Joe, anything?
No specific comments, just good work. Sounds like you've had your hands full getting kickstarted here, and just appreciate all the work you've done to keep us all informed. Thank you very much.
Kelly?
Same, thank you.
Supervisors, Linda?
Same.
Tifa?
Thank you. Good work.
Council? I just echo that. I have had the pleasure of interacting more with Sherry, but I'm thrilled that you're here and you're doing a great job. And I know there's a lot of runway out ahead, but just your commitment to the staff, it's really, really impressive to me. Also, thrilled to hear Dan volunteer that he's taking more classes. Professional development is really important, and I think that mini board did have did review. And I think there's positive feedback from that too. And I think just developing your own capabilities too is important. So anyway, all right. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.